Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is such a joy to be here with you today. I'm guessing that we are up and that we are live, and I'm thrilled to be having this amazing and special conversation with you today. Welcome, everyone from the Morter Institute community from around the world. I know that we're all very excited to be able to plug in with some real conversation that makes a true difference in our lives. As always, I am thrilled to bring those things to you, and I'm especially thrilled to bring to you a dear friend of mine over the years who I have been able to share stages and projects with, and I'm truly honored to be able to bring him here in a conversation with you live today. So before we bring him in, I want to just share a little bit about John Assaraf with you today. So John Assaraf is one of the leading mindset and behavioral experts in the world. Okay, he has appeared in numerous shows that we're all very familiar with. He's been numerous times on Larry King Live and Anderson Cooper and the Ellen DeGeneres Show. He has definitely dedicated his life to being out in front of people and sharing what he has put together, what he has learned in his own experiences. And so John has had tremendous success in his own life, and he shares from that experience, which is something that I love, that people are sharing from experience, not from theory. And everything that I always bring to you is of that ilk. And we are definitely in for a treat today. Let me tell you just a little bit about John. He has built 5 multi-million-dollar companies. So that's definitely in alignment with perking up one's ear. One went public on NASDAQ, and the other, Remax of Indiana, grew to 12,000 sales associates and a $4.5 billion a year in sales company. So he thinks big. And so we want to pay close attention here. All right. He has written a new best-selling book called Inner Size. And it's a new science to unlock your brain's hidden power. So in addition to his 2 New York Times best-selling books that he currently has written, Having It All is one of them, and The Answer, the other. Those have been translated in 35 languages, and now John is bringing forth this new version for us of his latest and greatest. So John has been featured in 10 movies, including the blockbuster hit The Secret and Quest for Success with Richard Branson and the Dalai Lama, whom I've had the privilege of being in the presence of myself. And I can tell you that we are in for a real treat today. All right. So today he is the founder and CEO of myneurogym.com, a company dedicated to using the most advanced technologies and evidence-based brain training methods, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, I hope, to help individuals strengthen their mindset and their emotional skills so that they unleash their inner power and maximize their results in their lives. And so, I could say much more about John, but I'd rather just give him to you. All right. So let's bring John in and just welcome him with your hearts wide open and get set for a great conversation in the next hour. John, welcome. Welcome. What a joy.
Hey there, Sue. So great to connect with you again.
Great to see you. Great to see you. So here we are online, right? We don't get to give hugs and just give that squeeze, but it is it's such a delight to see you in this fashion, at least. All right. So you ready to roll?
Let's do this. Let's have some fun, and let's light up people's brains and minds and their hearts.
Yes.
Get those all going.
Indeed, indeed. So much of what I am teaching people is about what happens in our consciousness, how we embody that consciousness, and how it affects the nervous system, and how the nervous system can support recreating those illuminations and revelations that we have. And so this conversation is going to be right on key for those that are gathering with us here today and watching the replays as well. So I'm going to just dive into kind of where you're coming from. I know that you are very interested in scientific background and reproducibility and consistency in results. And so I'd love to just dive in and have you just explain a little bit about some of the newest scientific studies and research that are helping people unlock the power of the brain and its true hidden potential. So just start talking and I'll jump in. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So I'm fascinated with human potential, of course, like you are. And I've been on this quest for 40 years to see how can I overcome, my limiting beliefs, my lack and limitations, my fears. How can I have, greater health and wealth and relationships and contribution to the world? How can I take this thing that I've heard since I was a young boy that, you have so much potential, and how can I take that potential and how can I turn that into predictable results instead of having just this potential? And that's taken me down the path, of personal development, developing oneself, and being radically honest with what's working, what's not, and why. And when I look at, my own life, first and foremost, and look at the results in health, wealth, relationships, career, business, finance, whatever it is, I've come to learn that every one of my effects are nothing more than a result of certain things that I did or didn't do, right? So certain beliefs, whether it was certain habits, certain fears I had, certain behaviors I took or didn't take, that's what caused the results. And so for 40 years, I've been a student of fixing cause so that effect takes care of itself. And a lot of people I've found over the years in researching, studying, applying, sharing, a lot of people get too caught up in the world of effects and don't realize that if they focus too much on effects, they're recreating the effects. And in many cases, it's the effect that they don't want. It's the result that they don't want. So what is going on inside, each of our brains, which I believe, and I know you'll agree, Sue, that, we have this $100 billion biocomputer or an organism that we were all born with. Every brain functionally works the same, okay? And maybe we just haven't learned how to be good operators, of our own brain yet. And maybe we can just get better at that. And in getting better at that, we can achieve our goals maybe a little faster, maybe a little bit easier, maybe with a little less stress versus more stress. And so I've been just fascinated with what's happening in my brain. I've discovered a few things that have helped me. I've shared those in whether it's my books or the work that I do. And hopefully I can help a lot of people along the way.
Beautiful. And so is there anything in particular regarding some of the latest research that you have found to be just poignant in landing these outcomes that people are truly desiring in their hearts and in their minds and in their deep core? They want these things to manifest. And so what is it that happens or doesn't happen that allows that to end up landing in someone's life experience or not?
Sure. So what I think is important where we start off is what is the purpose of the brain? Right? Like if we take away, my hair and my skin and get rid of my everything other than my brain and the eyes that are attached to the brain. Our brain is allowing light in, sound in through our ears, our tactile senses, our olfactory bulb, to allow the information, the energy information from our external world to become processed by this biocomputer that's doing, 4 things really, really, really well automatically without us even thinking about it. So the responsibility of this organism called our brain is for survival above all else, right? So our brain's processing information from the outside world, or even from the ideas and goals and vision that we have. And it's going, is there any way that this could affect your survival? Right along survival is also your safety. So that's like right up there with oxygen for us. And so all of the incoming information goes against this check and balance system around survival and safety. Number 2, avoidance of pain or discomfort. Now, think about this for just a moment as it relates to us setting goals that we really want to achieve. Let's say we set a goal and there is no risk of dying from that goal. Our brain says, okay, is there any risk that you might lose money and cause hardship to you or your family? Is there any risk that in pursuit of this goal, you might fail and that would result in you being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, or rejected? Is there any chance that you might not be loved if you go after this goal and disappoint yourself and others? Is there any chance of any pain or discomfort? And if our brain in our memory bank has a memory of that possibility from something we've read, something we've experienced, something we've been taught, then it activates the stress response sympathetic nervous system, which you're very familiar with, which releases the neurochemicals that makes us feel uncomfortable, right? So we may have a rush of cortisol or epinephrine or norepinephrine, the stress hormones, which is going to automatically cause the average person who doesn't have the skill of awareness and the skill of implementing choice to be in a state of fighting it, freezing, or running away from what is needed to be done. So that's the second part of our brain. And then number three is this brain of ours is a glucose miser. So it's taking all of your food, storing it as glucose, and it's then saying, hey, I'm going to regulate, okay, where I give this glucose, because this is what I use to function all the autonomic parts of you. And I need that to make that happen for survival, safety, and avoidance of pain. And then, oh, by the way, fourth, if number 1, 2, and 3 are okay, then let's go have a little bit of pleasure, through sex or food or doing something pleasurable. So there's a hierarchy of how our brain helps us or moves us away from taking inspired action in the form of motivation to move towards our goals and dreams. And since by default, we are averse to pain, discomfort, or losing or being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, then we will do more to avoid that than we will to gain pleasure. And so some of the research that I'm fascinated with is this. Okay, let's say that's how our brain works. Can I develop the skill to have greater awareness of when these circuits are turning on or off? Can I have a greater skill at awareness and choosing what I want to focus on and override any of these natural, and automatic circuits that my brain is firing off to do what it needs to do? Can I develop new, empowering, positive, constructive habits and release the disempowering, destructive, or maybe negative patterns or habits that I have? And the answer is yes, 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 and yes. So it brings us back to, it's possible that even though we have this $100 billion brain that we own, no mortgage, no payments, maybe we just need to be better operators. Maybe we just need to learn a little bit more of how our brain actually works. Since we own our brain and we can learn to use it versus allowing it to use us, we can then enter a whole new relationship, with consciousness. We can enter a whole new relationship in being, what I call is deliberately and consciously evolving ourselves versus waiting for 10,000, 20,000, or 100,000 years to go by and having, genetic changes happening because of environment, that's passed down to us over time.
Right, exactly. So it's basically you're talking about stopping the runaway train and just recognizing that we have choice in these moments, that we don't have to knee jerk with this amygdala hijack that takes us into fight or flight in an instant. And the next thing we know, we're in a reactive state. We can actually pause and be right here, right now, and make a deliberate choice. And so what you're speaking about is building the skill set for doing so, right? It's about becoming aware of how to become more aware in our lives as we traverse our path. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with the work you've done for our friendship for 20 plus years, and I think there's some fundamental things that are really fun for people to think about, right? And that is, when we were we born with any beliefs about anything? Were we born with any, fears of snakes or, fears of another human being? Were we born with a fear of losing money? Were we born with a self-image or an essence of feeling of how much we are worth or whether we're deserving enough or not? Were we born with any fears? And the answer is no. And so the question is, well, how did we formulate these beliefs and identity and fears? We have, if somebody brought in a 10-foot snake, for example, that's a Python 300-foot snake into your home right now, Sue, depending on how you were conditioned, you might, say, oh my God, bring that over here so I can do a selfie. Let me show everybody that snake. Or you might be jumping and running, out the door into your, into the driveway right now, depending on the conditioning. So the stimuli, the snake, really may have a different trigger and effect for different people based on their conditioning. And so our beliefs, we either inherited or formulated through the modeling and imprinting and experiential years. Our self-image, same thing. What we fear or revere, same thing. And the meaning that we gave things, or the meaning that things were given to us, were nothing more than passed along ideas and feelings of certainty from other people based on their life experience. Now, here's a question I like to ask. Are your beliefs empowering you or disempowering you? Is your self-image, self-worth, self-esteem moving you towards your goals and dreams or moving you away from them? Are you engaged in, a healthy pattern of growing and fulfilling your potential, or have you developed a pattern of standing on the edge of it? Because we repeatedly do what our habits dictate, not what we want. And so I'm fascinated with the three networks in the brain, the circuits, whether it's the stress circuit or fear circuit or spirituality circuit, the reward center circuit and motivational circuit in the brain that turn on or off like light switches that cause us to either take inspired action and move towards what we want, or we lose our motivation and we retreat and do not take inspired action. And the question is, can I learn how to recognize and train my brain, okay, to make deliberate choices that are constructive and positive? And the answer, as you know, is yes.
Would you say that the significance is above and beyond just gaining more knowledge and skill? What is this secret hidden ingredient behind the scenes that does truly transpire when someone begins to achieve what they really want to, or accomplish what they really want to accomplish in life? What is it that is more than our skills and our knowledge that ties all that together and creates a different outcome for people?
So there are a few things. Like, I look at the world maybe a little bit differently than some people. I think very similar to the way you do, in as much as the coalesced hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon elements that make up this sentient being called me and you. The intelligence within there is that spiritual intelligence that's been evolving, for billions of years, right? So that's the spiritual intelligence that wants fuller expression and expansion of itself. That's the spirit within me. Then we have these emotions. That's the energy in motion that's triggered in our subconscious mind that activates neurochemicals that causes feelings. And my ability to be aware of the emotions, be aware of the feelings, and direct my mindset and to deliberately choose what I want gets this physical thing called my body into action or into retreat. And so, when we are looking to achieve more peace of mind, more awareness, more focus, more contribution, more wealth, whatever the case is, I believe that the spiritual essence of who we are as a species is spirit and fuller expression is what spirit wants. But then we also have this physical body that wants its comfort zones. So we have this battle between spirit wanting to express more, body wants comfort zones, and sometimes there's these opposing forces, that hold us back in the form of emotions, in the form of disempowering habits. And so when we have these contrasting frames that we're all living in, this is where awareness gives us choice, and choice is what can give us freedom. But we also know that the patterns that we have reinforced, either deliberately or because of the environment that we live in, we know that the patterns that are repeated become permanent soft-wired patterns. And the permanent soft-wired patterns become the habitual patterns. The habitual patterns are there to conserve energy and create automatic thoughts, automatic emotions, automatic behaviors. And us adults, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to change our mind. When we have a baby or a toddler, we can help them make up their mind and actually develop these neural patterns. But adults, we have to actually deliberately be aware and then deliberately change. And then based on the science of neuroplasticity, we know it takes somewhere between 66 days and 365 days to override an old pattern and replace it with a newer pattern using traditional methods of neuroplasticity changes, whether it's visualization or meditation or mindfulness or affirmations. We know that some of the ways to change patterns is, for example, some of the medicines that are available out there today, whether it's ayahuasca, ketamine, MDMA, toad, whatever the case is, has a much more significant, fast impact on neural patterns and networks. And that's a little bit more of an advanced methodology. But we know that we are creatures of habit, and creatures of habit like comfort zones. And some of the comfort zones that we are in are not empowering us. That's the problem. They're disempowering us, but we have a hard time breaking free, not because we can't. It's because we haven't learned a new process based on the science of habit change, the science of being able to observe 90% negative thoughts in the average person's brains, which is considered about 6,200 thoughts a day now, is the newest research as of several weeks ago that I read. If 90% of your thoughts are negative each day, you have, let's say, 600 positive thoughts and 5,500, 5,600 negative thoughts a day. If you don't know how to observe it, let go of these effervescent negative, thought bubbles and focus on the positive, then chances are you will not achieve your potential. You may be standing on the edge of it. And what I know you're all about and I'm all about is, how do we give people more awareness, and how do you put yourself back in the driver's seat so you're controlling your life versus repeating patterns and reinforcing patterns that may not get you to live the extraordinary life you want?
So this is the question, right? This is it. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we're going to be opening up for live Q&A at the top of the hour. So just keep that in mind. Just be writing down your questions and know that you can plug in here directly with John. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. I didn't mention that at the beginning of our conversation. So what what an opportunity. So hang in with us. And I know that you're having a great time already. So now I want to jump back to you, John, and just ask another question about fear and how it interrupts this flow. We're already thinking, more negative thoughts a day than positive thoughts if we're not plugged in and inspired and listening to a deeper truth. If we're just out here on the surface of life and trying to navigate and trying to not write stories and writing them anyway and getting trapped inside of what the mind does when it's not really connected into this spirit source that you're referencing. And so how does fear jump in there specifically? Can you just speak a little bit to our viewers about the role that fear plays when it comes to this other idea that I have, that I want to set down in my life? I want to set this goal, or I have this intention I'd love to unfold in this direction, and it's just not happening. Can I just weave fear into the conversation for people so that we can begin to have a reference point here for where these negative thoughts come from and what role they're playing.
So let's set aside negative thoughts for just a moment, and let's go back to what we discussed a little bit earlier. Up on my shelves, you're gonna all see. I'm gonna lift up. You see my Einstein Brain up there, or my Einstein and my Frankenstein's monster over there? That's to remind me that within every human being, we have this genius within us that can imagine the life of our dreams. We can determine why we want it, how we're going to achieve it. We can determine step 1 and step 2 and step 3 and step 4, and we can get excited and we can share it with our friends, and we can like high five and hug and kumbaya and make the greatest plans in the world. Now, we also know that there's another side to our brain, and that's part of what we call as the left prefrontal cortex part of the brain. But we also know that a counterbalance to that is what I call as the Frankenstein's monster part of the brain. And I just use these as visuals for people to understand that when you're driving your car, let me divert for just a moment and say, when you're driving your car, and you get too close to another car, some of the cars of today have a little beeping that goes, whether it's the cars, just behind you in your blind spot on the left side or the right side, or behind you or in front of you. There's a radar that is giving you a signal that you may hit something or something may hit you. There's another part of your car's system that says, hey, you're low on gas, and it flashes a light on your dashboard. Or, it tells you that the back right wheel is low on air, or you're low on windshield wiper fluid or gas, right? Those are signals to make you aware. Well, how is it that this species has evolved for 2 million years? A couple 100,000 is the Homo sapiens species, and we're still here. We haven't killed ourselves yet. Well, it's because we have an error detection mechanism system. We have this part of our brain that is processing light and sound and smell at 400 billion bits of information per second just through our eyes, and it's checking in balance. Is there something here that might cause what I said before, you to die, you to get seriously hurt, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, or financially? And it's doing this check and balance like every guidance missile system does, all right, to protect itself. So what if we all of a sudden said, I have nothing to fear? The fear signal is just a signal to make me aware that something in my biocomputer is being triggered, okay, for me to be aware of, so that I can move to a higher cortical functioning part of my brain to say, okay, is there a chance I might be embarrassed? Yeah, there's a chance I might be embarrassed. Where did that come from? Well, when I was in 6th grade and I stood up, to give somebody an answer, and I got the wrong answer, my friends laughed at me, or I didn't do well on a test and my friends laughed at me, or I invested in this thing 5 years ago and I lost my money because I really didn't know what I was doing. Our brain is just giving us signals all the time. Stop, go, motivate, unmotivate, procrastinate, self-sabotage. All of these signals are there for us to be able to navigate this thing called our lives. So when we're talking about fear, there's 50 different types of fears that can percolate up as a warning signal based on not just the reality of the moment, but our brain is focusing on what might happen in the future if I do this now. Our brain predicts, right? It's a predictive machine. So it's predicting the future based on the past, but we're feeling the effects of what it's predicting in the present moment. So what happens is if we are afraid, fearful of losing money and how it might affect our life, okay, we're going to go into our comfort zone because we don't want to feel what we felt before. It was very uncomfortable and created some problems in my life before. Or, I was embarrassed, or I was ashamed, or I was rejected. When I picked up the phone to call, so-and-so, because that's part of my job, and they hung up on me, or they yelled at me, or they did something that made me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to feel that. Well, why not? Why can't you learn to feel it, give it a different meaning so it doesn't disempower you? Could you learn that skill, right, of recognizing whether it's a thought or emotion or a feeling? Can you learn how to reframe it so that you are empowered instead of disempowered? Can you release through, for example, 6 slow breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth slowly? Can you learn to release that emotion, the energy that's in motion in your body, called a neurochemical, that will last no more than 90 seconds if you allow it to leave your bloodstream? Can you breathe in and out, in through your nose, out through your mouth, to deactivate that sympathetic nervous system where you're in a stress state where you're reacting, and move to a calm state where you can respond? And then can you retrain your brain so that the same stimuli doesn't cause the same automatic fear signal to activate? Of course you can. So when we are fearful of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, rejected, fear of failure, fear of disappointment. Disappointment avoidance is one of the greatest fears nobody talks about. Fear of succeeding and then failing, fear of being alone. There are 50 different types of fears that we naturally move away from automatically. But how do we train a firefighter to go into a burning building? How do we train an astronaut who's out on a space station walk, whose face mask malfunctions and water starts to come into their face mask, to stay calm when they might die in the next minute and a half? How do we train Navy SEALs underwater who are in battle against 3 other Navy SEALs to stay calm so they can respond versus react where they're in much more danger? The answer is we train them. The answer is we train them to have better control of their brains. We train them to have greater emotional regulation control. We train them on what the behaviors are. When this happens, here's how you respond. And if we understand that repetition is, how we make patterns, and patterns that are reinforced become soft-wired, and the soft wire patterns that are reinforced become part of our habitual patterns, is it possible that we could, and the term that I use based on my newest book, Innercise, is it possible we can exercise to strengthen our body's muscles, but we can also innercise to strengthen our core neuromuscles? And the answer is yes. This is where we're at today. Now, in the absence of knowing how to, then we repeat patterns that may not be the best patterns for us. And since we are, since our brain is predicting the future based on our current patterns, is it possible to refire our brain, to rewire it with more empowering, constructive, positive patterns? And the answer is, not only is it possible, this is what elite athletes do. This is what CEOs do. This is what people who, really want to play at a higher level of the game are doing right now.
No. And so these principles and these practices obviously are also applicable to, the non-astronaut and the non-deep sea diver or Navy SEAL, but maybe somebody who just wakes up in the early morning hours and is just riddled with anxiety for no apparent reason. And all these energies are surfacing and they don't know what to do with them. That these same principles that seem, that we know apply to these more extreme type circumstances and are course correcting for them, that this could also be quite applicable for someone who is, living kind of a regular life, doing their thing, but find themselves just overwhelmed with a state of doom, or wondering what's happening on our planet, or how we're going to be okay moving forward, or things ever going to be feeling safe again. That those sensations are also categorized inside of these 50 types of fears that we are here to master. So yes, can you just speak a little bit to that individual? It's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're like, what am I going to do with my life? How do I make it okay? I don't have a job. I don't have, I'm losing my relationship, or my health is, at risk all the time. Just talk to us about that moment that someone can do, right?
So, sure. So let's say somebody's either asleep and they wake up and they're feeling anxious. Let's say somebody's watching TV and all of a sudden they get anxious. Let's say somebody's making a tea for themselves and they all of a sudden get anxious. So what is it that we know about anxiety? What is it that we know about this stress, right? Anxiety is a form of stress. And what we know is that something triggered, the thought. The thought triggered the neurochemical. The neurochemical in our body is what we call as the feeling of anxiety. In agreement so far?
Yeah.
So if we now think about what we're feeling and we feel what we think about, doesn't it make sense that we are going to keep activating that circuit of anxiety? Yeah, so if we keep reactivating the circuit, that just got activated by something probably that we're not even aware of, now we are going to create and reinforce this pattern, which will want to reinforce itself if we allow it to get unchecked. Now, I want everybody to have this as a side over here for just a moment and think about this. Have you ever seen this happen? You're either at a friend's house, a baby is crying, and the parent is trying, or the caregiver is trying to get the baby to stop crying, and they can't get the baby to stop crying. And then all of a sudden, something on the side, like a dog walks by, or a clown walks by, or a balloon flies in the air, and the baby stops crying in an instant and pays attention to that other thing. We've all seen something like that happen. Now let's understand from a neuromechanic perspective what actually happened. And the answer is there was a pattern interruption. The pattern of crying was interrupted by something else. Now here's the question. If anxiety, if stress, if even panic is an effect, is it possible that we can learn to deliberately interrupt our patterns that are disempowering us, maybe even negative? Is it possible that we can learn the skill of interrupting a pattern? And the answer is yes, because when we're in the domain of emotions that are triggered in the subconscious mind that release neurochemicals that cause us to feel, we have 100 or so trillion cells in our body. When the neurochemicals of anxiety are in our body, it's like almost like we're over caffeinated, right? It's this angst. Left unchecked, it can move from anxiety, maybe level 1, to panic level 10. Now, what do we know about level 1 or 10 anxiety? Is we tend to repeat, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? How come this is happening? I wonder, what if negative, right? About a year and a half ago, Sue, my wife had to go into the hospital for a severe back surgery where they put 2 rods in her back and 8 screws. She was born with congenital scoliosis, and she had a major surgery. After 6 months of being in a body brace, they took the brace off basically, and they realized in one of the CAT scans that one of the screws was hitting her aorta. And so she had to go back in for emergency surgery after 6 months of recovery to remove one screw. And so one day I was actually in my home office and studio, and I heard upstairs, my wife says, honey, could you please come up here right now? And I knew that there was a little bit of stress in her voice. I said, sweetheart, I'm busy doing something right now. Is it okay if I come up in 5 or 10 minutes? She goes, no, I need you right now. And my wife never, ever in 20 years of being together, never said that. So I walked up the stairs very, very quickly. Her eyes were as big as saucers. She goes, I need to go to the hospital right now. And I'm like, what's going on? She was having a full-on panic attack right there. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I need to go to the hospital right now. I said, sweetheart, do you trust me? She goes, yeah. But I need to go to the hospital. I said, okay, look into my eyes right now. Okay. I want you to pay attention to this. I clicked my fingers 3 times. And I want you to watch my nose, watch my mouth. Ready? We're going to do 6 breaths and then we'll go to the hospital. So she did 6 breaths to me. 1, stay with me, honey. Stay with me. Release slowly. 5 more. You're doing great, sweetheart. Keep looking into my eyes. Pay attention to my nose and my mouth. Breathe in deeply, and let it go slowly, 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 slowly. She went from a 9 panic to an 8 to a 7 to a 6 to a 3 to a 2. When I got her into a calmer state, I said, we'll go to the hospital. That's okay. What are you feeling? Honey, I feel like something's wrong. I said, great. Let's move from standing up. Let's go and sit down for just a moment. Let's call the doctor now that you're a little calmer. Now, what did I do in that moment? First and foremost, I interrupted her panic state, right? Where she was focusing on something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. I might die. And she had a lot of reason to think that there was something wrong. She just had major back surgery. There's a major complication. She's got to go get, a screw removed that might rupture her aorta and so forth. And so she had all the reason to be in a state of fear of what might happen. She might die. But without her having the techniques, or in my case, me helping her get off the ledge, she would have probably called 911. So the question now becomes, can I learn when I'm in a stress state? Is it not true? And Sue, you're a doctor. Is it not true that the stress circuit activates when the current demand exceeds our current capacity? So it's either our mental capacity right now, our emotional regulation capacity right now, maybe our financial capacity right now. The demands that we need right in this moment, okay, it may be the cognitive load is too high. That's a possibility. So something is exceeding my current capacity right now. That's triggering, okay, a stress response. So the problem isn't the stress response. The problem isn't anxiety. The problem isn't that it can move to panic. The problem is that we may not have learned how to recognize when our stress response is activated, when our fear circuit is activated, when our self-doubt circuit's activated. So I'll give you an example. People come to me and say, John, how do I stop procrastinating? How do I stop sabotaging, my success, whether I'm, losing weight and gaining all the weight back? I get out of one bad relationship into another one. I start but don't finish. I succeed and then I sabotage my success. And I say, well, everything you've just described is an effect. Procrastination is a behavior, I get that, but it's an effect of something else. Let's address what that is that's causing you to procrastinate. If you're self-sabotaging, let's address why are you self-sabotaging, right? Because self-sabotage is a behavior to create neural and emotional alignment, okay, with our conditioned conscious and subconscious mind. So, when I look at or talk to people around behavior and feelings, I'm looking way past that, okay, to what's causing it, right? And very few people, we haven't been trained. The challenge is we just haven't been taught how to do this. It's not that we can't, is we haven't been taught how to. And so, in 6 simple breaths, I call this take 6, calm the circuits, right? That's inner size number 1. Inner size number 2 is called Aya, which is awareness, intention, action. And so after we're calm, now what if we were aware of thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, behaviors? And what if we did that without judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification? What if we were just aware of patterns? We didn't label them. We didn't judge ourselves. We didn't shame ourselves. We didn't do anything other than awareness of a pattern. And then what if we could set one intention of what we want, how we want to feel, what thought we want to have, what behavior we want to take that'll move us towards what we want and cause us to feel the way we want. And then what if I just reduced the action to one simple, easy to follow through on to completion action? What if I developed that as a new habit and pattern? Now who's in control? So if we did inner size number 1, take 6, calm the circuit, inner size number 2, which is Aya, awareness, intention, action. And then we followed it up with another skill set, which I call is the flip-flop inner size actor studio, where we realize, what do actors and actresses all have in common? They can go from being happy to sad, to mad, to elated, to any emotion they want on demand. They are the Olympic athletes of emotional choice and regulation, right? It's because they practice. Because they practiced it. Well, when was the last time we as individuals took an emotional regulation class? We realized we have emotions, we have feelings, and if we don't learn to control them, they control us and they control what we do or don't do. So this is the area that I love to play in, and I know you do too, Sue.
Sure. Well, it's definitely a part of what we are looking at. We cross over in this area of the brain, and I'm always emphasizing what does spirit, what does the essential self, what does the quantum self, the energy being do that causes an impetus for the brain to start behaving in the way that it is. And so always drawing the idea of love into the mix as well. So I just wanted to ask you, what is the role of love inside of any of the practices that you're doing with inner size? Is there a way that is implemented specifically, or is it just kind of engaged and infused in the whole process?
Well, if love is an emotion, right? Self-love is where it begins. Expressed love is where it continues. So when I feel self-love, right, and I have a healthy non-ego love for myself, right? I am created by this spiritual intelligence that created everything and everyone on this blue planet and everywhere else that we can see, out into the outer banks of the cosmos. If I have this healthy self-love for this omnipotent, omnipresent intelligence that created me as is within me, how can I be less than enough? I am more than enough. How can I have limitations when spirit is limitless? How can I look at you and judge you when you are made from the very same essence that I am made from? That's a healthy way to use, love in a humble, perspective. And let's play from that. One of the things that I teach to my students is something I call the SEMP model. And SEMP is the spiritual is the essence of who we are, right? The E is for we have emotions within this physical body of ours. We have our mental faculties that we can learn to use better. And then we have this physical body that either moves into action or moves away from it. So is there a way for us to operate from a higher order of spirit, using our emotions, using our mental faculties to get this body to love more, give more, have more, experience more? The answer is yes. But when we're out of coherence from that pattern, then we have an incoherent pattern or a chaotic pattern. And so I like to, to teach and to think of our life as we know we're all made up of this, energy, and this energetic state in solid form is called a human, right? But what is the energetic state in a non-solid form, right? It's called spirit. And so in my non-solid form, I am spirit. And the fact that my, as I mentioned earlier, the honk, the hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon has coalesced into the sentient being called a human, that spirit is within every one of those 100 trillion cells. Let's not forget that. So when we think of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, really? We might want to reframe what and who you really are, because the person that you're seeing in the mirror in this solid state is one aspect of who you are. But there's this whole other more powerful part of you that is able to create this incredible experience on this beautiful blue planet, not just for yourself and your family, but for others.
Yes, indeed. So I know that everyone listening right now is plugging into that conversation because of so many of the things that we study as far as being the spirit being the energy being that invisible one, and having a mind that we are here to train and here to tame. And then that has an influence on how the brain functions. And so now, tying those things together, I'm sure it's clicking in for everyone. Again, everyone, I want to remind you that in just a few moments, we're going to open it up for Q&A, and you'll be able to ask your questions and have some fun with this. John, a couple more things that I want to ask you before we get to that point. And this is kind of reeling us back over toward methodologies and technology and the science base and the reproducibility of the processes that we're going through, and how important it is to recognize that in terms of generating new habits and patterns and ways of operating and new sets of circuits, which our audience can relate to that terminology, new sets of circuits that are based upon truly flowing in a coherent and resonant manner. You talk about evidence-based technologies and methodologies to transform from the inside out. Can you just share a little bit more about that languaging so that our audience can have an appreciation for where you're coming from, even more so?
The answer is yes. And I want to ask you for permission to just go back for 1 second, since I know you're all about energy and intelligence and the universe and the quantum field. May I just share one thought?
Of course, please.
Many years ago, like 41 years ago, when I started to study spirituality and energy and the different ologies, and I learned that I am made up of energy. And I was like, well, what in the world is energy, otherwise known as, quanta? And I was taught back then that, well, from what we can gather and understand is energy, this quantum field that we are all in. It's not like there's an out there and an in here, no more than, a fish necessarily isn't just in the water is in the fish as well, and the fish is part of the planet, etc. So I was taught to think of energy in two states, not like Indiana and San Diego or California, but in two states of energy in its rawest form is in a state of potential, otherwise known as a wave, and that we can interchange between waves and particles. So from wave potential to a particle physical. And what I was taught way back when is I am living in a participatory universe where I am participating with how I am collapsing the wave function and what particle it becomes. And I was taught that if I take potential and I focus on how I can, why I will, and I focus on collapsing the wave into what I want versus what I don't want, since both potentials are there, I could participate in this universal creative intelligence by focusing my energy and my attention units and my choices on what I want versus what I didn't want. So I started to set vision and goals 41 years ago that were very, very, very clear and precise so that I could instruct my brain better to help me collapse the wave of possibility into particles of probabilities. So that was part one. So the other parts, that now tie into the question you asked is there a way for me to create and reinforce neural networks or patterns that would then do that automatically? Interesting question. And so many years ago, we talked about evidence-based. What do we know? Let's say we wanted to learn a song right now, and we never heard the song. We never read the song, saw the song. We just got a sheet of music or just the words of a song. And even if it's in a different language than you've ever spoken before, there's no cellular memory or cellular connections for that song, right? Because you've never seen it before. But let's say, Sue, you were going to lead all of us to learn this new song, one word at a time, add the music in, and we practice that song. 1 word, 5 words, 10 words, 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, and we practiced. Today it might be, we might be clumsy beginners. We don't know the language, we don't know the words, we don't know what it means. None of it makes sense to us. What do we know would happen if we did it 1 time, 10 times, 100 times, 500 times? It would go from us being clumsy beginners and having no understanding or recollection or memory of the song to probably not even needing the words anymore, and we could sing along together. Well, if that song happened to come on somewhere else, we go, oh, wow, trigger, I recognize that song. I could sing along because we practiced that song. Well, every Hollywood actor or actress that receives a new script practices that script that they've never seen before until the script becomes part of them. And once that script is a part of them, that script is part of your energetic blueprint. And so now we are emanating this frequency that's in every one of our cells around that script. So are you focusing on the script of what you want or what you don't want? Are you focusing on the script of how you can or why you can't? Are you focusing on the script of believing that no matter what happens to you, it happens for you, or what happens to you, you become a victim of? So when we start to practice developing and reinforcing the right patterns, the automatic patterns all of a sudden start to create the lens by which we see the world. It creates the lens by which we predict outcomes. It creates the lens by which we give instructions to the GPS part of our brain to help us find the very thing that we have conditioned or trained our brain to find. Why? Because there is a part of our brain that acts like a GPS to find what we want or what we don't want. So when we talk about, how do we develop these new patterns? Well, we can develop them through self-talk, affirmations, declarations, promises. We can develop them through creating new stories, right? And becoming that new story through practicing that story like a Hollywood actor does. We can visualize to simulate, which means we're going to fire off those neurons in our brains. We can listen, we can watch, we can experience. We can do neurofeedback. We can do medicine journeys if we want to. There's a variety of different methodologies for us to activate the salience, executive, or the default mode networks of the brain and reprogram, rescript any of the, I'm going to call it software that may not be serving us anymore. And so I practice that still every single day. 41 years after I learned the beginner versions of it, I still listen to stuff. I still do my daily exercise. I created programs for myself and my students to be able to have aids, all right, to be able to facilitate doing what I call are the exercises, to be able to train my brain to higher levels of performance. And what I mean by that specifically is more positive thoughts, more control over emotions, and more high performance behaviors and habits, so that I can, achieve what I want to achieve spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically in each area of my life. And that's a practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm one of practices as well, for sure. And what we know, and I want to say this into our particular audience that is here around the world listening in today, that when we train the brain, we refine the mind. It is happening to clarify pathways that work, and it raises one's vibrational frequency. And so we oftentimes talk about expressing as the soulful self or as the quantum being without distortion, without interruption. And so when we're practicing these patterns, that it's kind of a training to train synapses to happen in certain pathways in certain orderly fashions on a regular basis, it rules out a lot of the confusion and allows for this clarification and an expression without interruption to happen of this soulful, essential self, the true, authentic self that's here trying to come out and live this life, without blockages and obstacles that we're constantly dodging. So I just wanted to kind of translate some of the language that I know our audience is familiar with everything that you're saying, and practices help us to do that. Now, you, John, are also bringing something forward, I know, called the Brain-A-Thon. And I'd like for you to just share for a couple minutes about that before we open up to Q&A, so that people have a reference point and what it is that's coming their way that they might want to jump in and participate in. I believe it's next Saturday, but we'll get to that later. What is the Brain-A-Thon, and how can it help people become more experiencing their fulfillment and their success then in living this life?
Sure. So I just happen to be fascinated with this human brain of ours, right? It's this electromagnetic switching station that's been evolving for, billions of years, 200,000 or so years of Homo sapien being on this blue planet. And I've been fascinated with how can I just be a better operator, user of my own brain. And so 9 years ago, I invited some amazing neuroscientists, neuropsychologists to teach what's the latest that we're learning about letting go of limiting beliefs. What's the latest we're learning about overcoming my fears, whatever fears I might have? What's the latest on really upgrading my identity and my self-image of myself, so I can stop worrying about what other people think of me, or stop being afraid of, really going after my biggest goals and dreams. And so I started doing this Brain-A-Thon once a year, where we invite some of the top brain and success experts to the Brain-A-Thon. And we share the latest, the greatest, and the best for free for about 6-7 hours. We don't charge any money for it, even though we could probably charge $1,000 and be worth every penny of it. And we've had over 5 million people in the last 8 years go through previous Brain-A-Thons. We've had usually about 100,000 people sign up for the live Brain-A-Thon that we do each year. We've got one coming up this Saturday, as you mentioned. And this year we've got, I'll be teaching. My lineup this year is Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, one of the top neuroscientists and neuropsychologists in the world. She's distinguished professor at Northeastern University, and on Harvard's medical team. Lisa Nichols, which many people remember from the movie The Secret. She shares, how she overcame some of her limitations early on in life. Dr. John DeMartini is brilliant in understanding behavior and how to take inspired action. Marissa Peer will be there as well, who's a phenomenal hypnotherapist, teaching about how do you use self-hypnosis to overcome any of the things that are holding you back. Many people know Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul. He was also in the movie The Secret. So we'll be sharing, a full day of change your brain to change your income is the theme this year. And we want to help people get rid of what's holding them back from making the income that they want to make, acquiring the wealth that they want to have, to live the lifestyle that they want, but also that gives them the most impact in the world. And so we're doing this theme around that. And it'll be 9 o'clock Pacific on Saturday, 12 o'clock New York time on Saturday for about 6 hours. And we also have people who are training their brain to achieve their goals faster and easier and sharing how they're doing it. So thanks for bringing that up, Sue.
Absolutely. It sounds fantastic. And I know, personally know many of those folks, and I know that it's going to be a power-packed day that will certainly be a tremendous benefit for anyone who plugs in. So thank you for doing it, John, and for pulling people together with such a high purpose on the planet, right? To clarify these crazy minds so that they can be in service to something bigger. And when we are fulfilling our true destiny, that's exactly what happens. So through these practices, people will be able to do that. And I'm very grateful to you for bringing these types of things forward in the programs that you teach. So I'd like to open it up now for Q&A. And I think that our host, Lauren, is going to help us with calling on people or reading the questions to you, and let's just see how we can navigate some live connection with folks in our community.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Sue, and thank you, John. And yeah, we have some questions coming in from our Facebook page for the both of you. So we'll start with Vivian. She says, what would you recommend when you're in a toxic environment and you're trying to stay calm? For example, how do you train your brain to respond if you're standing in line at the grocery store and the person in front of you is having a tantrum about wearing a mask and everyone is getting stressed?
Great. So, I mean, that's a great question. And so here's the question that really arises. Why are you getting stressed if somebody is having a tantrum? Like, and again, I'm not asking, I'm asking you to think about, like, why is somebody else losing their shit, okay, causing you to be stressed? And here's the answer. It's because A, you're judging it and you're giving it a disempowering negative meaning. B, you don't think they should do it, so you have rules around what proper behavior is, so they're upsetting one of your rules. And then C, it's because you haven't yet learned how to observe without reacting, and observe and just stay calm. So here's the question. Is it really about their tantrum or around the meaning that you have, the judgments you have, and the lack of practicing being in control and just observing? So is it really them and it, or me and my lack of skill? And if you're honest, I mean, really honest, if I said to you, if you had to be calm, if you absolutely, unequivocally, no matter what, had to be calm, could you? And everybody will say, well, if I had to, I could. I don't want to. Well, why not? Well, not because I'm judging, because they shouldn't do it, because they're disruptive. Well, no, but if you had to, could you? And if the answer is if I had to, I could, why not choose that? Because that's a more empowering state for you than reacting and allowing their disempowered state or energy to override your amazing spiritual energetic field. So I can stand guard and observe and go, that's interesting. I wonder why this individual is doing this. I wonder what happened in their life or their childhood to have such, a lack of blank to cause this. Now, if we're honest, we can have more control. And if we practice, we can absolutely have it. It's no different than if you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off, right? You go, that son of a, right? Well, maybe. What if you found out later that their dog died and they're rushing to the hospital, because they need to get to the hospital to help their dog or their child? Would you then change your mind? Oh, they're not a son of a, they were just in a real rush. Well, we jump to these conclusions in nanoseconds based on the meanings that our subconscious mind has around that incidence. And so we allow people to steal our energy and our essence without even knowing it, because their vibrational level is higher than our calm level is.
So what we're basically saying is, if we can masterfully manage our personal state, then we're available to compassion instead of something on the outside causing us to have a different experience than we were wanting to have on the inside. And so in every way that we can master our internal environment, regardless of our external circumstances, then we become more grounded and solid, and we're available then for compassion. We're available to emanate an energy frequency that will allow this person to feel more calm and less likely to stay caught up into their states of anxiety and expressing that anxiety, et cetera.
And Sue, let's come back to what you asked earlier about love. What if we shifted into a state of love for them? Yeah. What if we shifted into a state of compassion for them? What if we shifted to a state of understanding? Okay, now we've elevated our vibrational rate and frequency, and there's a chance that not only will it not affect us, but our higher vibrational state, the person who is most committed to their state wins. So let's be committed to a higher level of love, which is the killer state. That's like the killer app, right? That's self-love, love for one another, right? So if we shift over to that state of being without judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification, then now we are operating at a higher vibratory rate, not a higher, better than them vibratory rate, just a choice of living in a loving, caring, compassionate state.
And whoever manages their state the most wins. And if they manage it enough, everybody wins. Because if we manage it enough, we have a calming effect on the people around us. They walk past us and they don't even know why. There's just a different energy frequency in the environment, and it has a soothing effect on the electromagnetic energy system. So great question.
And we are energetic beings, right? So we are emitting a frequency. And so either we're emitting a stressed, angry, resentful frequency, or a calm, loving, caring, compassionate frequency. And so when people use their intuitive factors that, they pick up on the energy around them, they're like, wow, I feel good around this person. And that's really a magnetic force to attract more of what it is that you want.
Certainly leads to success, right? And so that's what the whole thing is about. So the fulfillment of our true destiny. So thank you for the question, and thank you, John, for your answers there. So let's, and certainly significant right now, right? There's so much turmoil. There's so much happening in the outer world that has given rise to this type of question for so many people in so many circumstances so consistently. So how I see that is we are faced with some regular practice ground right now. We have all sorts of material to work with to practice these things, and it is exactly that for us. So Lauren, let's take another question.
Okay. Anne was asking, why do some people have profound awakening experiences? Is it something that we have been pre-programmed to experience before we come into this body, like an agreement almost?
I really don't know the answer to that question, right? To suggest that it's something that we have come pre-programmed to profound experience, and suggest that from a scientific perspective, I can't answer that. However, where I would like to veer that off is to ask this question, right? If we are spiritual beings, which I believe we are, and if we are, if the essence of spirit is for fuller expression and expansion of itself and awareness of itself, is it possible that we do come pre-programmed, genetic predisposition for that. And so is it possible that we are actively seeking that? And when we are ready to experience it, we find it. I'm cool with that. I've had mystical experiences. I've had experiences on medicines as somebody who explores consciousness. And I can tell you, holy mackerel, if you are, whatever it is that you are seeking, it is seeking you. And so if you are seeking to, expand your awareness, to expand your consciousness, to be aware of all that you already are, and you're prepared to be radically honest, I know the answers are here, and they're here right now.
It's beautiful. So, I want to keep this conversation as to something that we're really honoring and asking questions of John, because my community has an opportunity to ask me questions often. But I do want to chime in a little bit here that I do feel that as we evolve as a soulful presence, and we're coming into this life as another round to have our experiences. And I have had many great openings along these lines and have a lot of memory about choosing to come in to this, earthly plane, and to take a body and to do this thing. And that there, as we evolve, there are higher and higher frequency reasons for taking a body, for coming into this dimension and doing this thing. And so as such, we are gathering the energies that are required to have a higher and higher and higher state of consciousness experience while we are here, expressing the true self more and more and more, thinning the veils, if you will. And so I would say that there is a predisposition to this. And I also know this, that we can train our minds to serve the soul. We can train our minds to serve something higher than itself. And this is what John is speaking about today, is that if we get an entrainment happening within the nervous system that allows for higher vibrational thoughts and higher vibrational visions on a regular basis, we're increasing our vibrational frequency. And it allows for the need for less cloaking, less guardedness, less protection, and then therefore a greater opportunity for more and more expression as this soulful presence coming out into this world. So it feels like then we're living our authenticity, we're having exalted experiences, and it is here for the having. And what we're trying to do inside of this conversation is bring everything forward that can allow one to find themselves in the opportunity for higher and higher states of experience and higher states of awareness to land in this lifetime, in this body, right here and now, as John was saying. So just trying to weave that together in languages that I know that our audience is a little familiar with, and how it is so supportive to what it is that we're speaking about, what John is bringing in, and the skill sets that he is hoping to help everyone learn and hone. So
Sue, when you were sharing your wisdom, I wrote something down here that you just triggered, my mind. Spirit is for fuller expression and expansion of itself, right? Sometimes we suppress for protection of ourselves. So, spirit is looking to expand outwards. Suppression is a protection inward. The challenge is suppression usually leads to depression. Depression usually leads to disintegration. Disintegration leads to the death a lot faster than we need to. So is it possible that both realities exist, and what we choose determines whether we express or suppress? And that's kind of like, how I see energy. Nothing is ever created or destroyed, as we know, with energy. And so I don't believe anything, is ever dies. It just changes form. And so what we want to do is, how do I change forms into the expression of the highest good for me, my family, and all humans and animals and plants and everything is inspiring life versus expiring life.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's get to as many callers as we can, but I think we have time for a couple more. So Lauren, let's, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Kelly's asking if we could discuss some ways to reprogram wired beliefs faster than the 66 to 365 days. What are some direct and powerful techniques that you recommend, John?
Sure. So no differently than, if you want to get in better physical shape, you could exercise 2 or 3 times a day doing a variety of different things. When we're talking about, let's say a limiting belief, one of the techniques that I like to use is something called an in the past frame. So write down a limiting belief that you have. Doesn't matter, what your limiting belief is. Okay, I'm too young, I'm too old, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough knowledge or skill, whatever the limiting belief is that is limiting you right now. Simply rewriting it in this fashion. In the past, I used to believe, write out the limiting belief. And now that I'm wiser and smarter than I've ever been, I'm choosing to believe and write down the positive belief that you want to believe that will empower you, that's constructive, and that's positive. So in the past, I used to believe this. Now that I'm wiser and smarter, I'm choosing to believe this. Now think about this for a moment. I'm going to go back to learning a new song. If you wanted to learn a brand new song, what would be the ways that you could learn a brand new song? You could read it, you could record it and listen to it, you can practice it, you can sing it with your friends. What if you took that new belief and what if you wrote it out, 3 times a day for a minute or 2? What if you closed your eyes and saw yourself behaving in ways that are aligned with that new belief? What if you did something called mental contrasting that didn't just see you applying this new belief into your real life, but you saw yourself in your old belief and overcoming it with your new belief, and you created a mental contrast frame in your brain of before, after, and now? What if you start to visualize how it will positively impact your life? What if you start to visualize who else would be positively impacted as a result of this new belief in the present moment and in the future? What if you took that one paragraph, in the past I used to, what if you recorded it and listened to it while you were doing work, on your computer? Do you think that the repetition and the variety of different methods, all right, to impress a new belief over a period of time would help you? Of course, because it would direct your intention with your attention with spaced repetition in a variety of different methods that we know create and reinforce neural patterns. So those are just a few things that you could do without very much help by anybody.
Beautiful. Decreasing, collapsing time, really. What we're doing is if we approach it from multiple angles simultaneously, we take this pattern that would take this long to happen, and we kind of turn it on in and just collapse it on itself and allow this outcome to happen more regularly from a vibrational standpoint. I also teach practices, teaching people how to take it, to the body and work with things with the breath, etc. And what you're saying is let's get the mind on board with that at the same time, sure, and allow for all of our faculties to be engaging in alignment so that, this can just drop straight in. So
that's called coherence, right? And what we're looking to create is coherent patterns versus chaotic patterns in our brain and in our energetic field. And the other thing I want everybody to think about for just a moment is, if you think about a radio, if you want to listen to rock and roll music, you might go to 95.5. At 95.6, that might be punk rock on that other station. It's just like one digit away from 95.5. At 95.6, it's punk rock. 95.7 might be classical. 95.8 might be country western. 95.9, might be another type of music. So when we are locked on the station that we want, we're in concert, we're in harmony, we're in flow with the frequency of that station. So let's get very, very, very clear on the station that we want to lock and load onto. And then let's keep coming back to that station. So we teach our brain, we teach, okay, ourselves that here's where that station is. Keep coming back to that station. Keep coming back to that station. We are so distracted in the world right now. You know, whether it's COVID, whether it's government, whether it's taxes, whether it's Republican, whether it's Democrat, whether it's this party or that party. There's so many distractions trying to get us off of our stations. So let's choose the stations, and then let's deliberately and consistently come back to those stations where we know the channel is on point.
There is a coherence that allows for the body to heal and for the mind to become creative and not protective, and for the breath to happen easily in the body, and for this calm, grounded state to occur on a regular basis. And even if we start to get pulled off of it, we're just pulled right back in. We have this coherent pattern established in the system. And that's really what the nervous system is designed to do, is to maintain the patterns that we choose. And if we've just inadvertently been choosing fear or been choosing negative possibilities or worst case scenarios, the nervous system is just innocently doing what we've been asking it to do all this time. And so we're saying, you know, time out. We have to remember what it is that this whole system is here for, and it's to express the essential self, this true energy, spirit being. It's here to have a life. It came here to do that. And so, you know, we're just aligning all these faculties so that it can help support that happening and get some momentum, so that it isn't a struggle all the time to just try to get your life going in the direction that you want it to. Okay, let's take another one. I think we have time for one more. John, we can squeeze it in there. Just squeeze one more. Okay.
Sure.
Laser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was hoping maybe, John, if you could just speak to if someone can't attend the Brain-A-Thon on Saturday, will another date be offered or a recording?
Sure. So for anybody who signs up, and Sue, I believe you have a link you can give people. I don't know how you want to do that.
Yes, we're going to put that up in the chat now. I think it's been posted in a couple of times already, and we'll definitely keep it available to our whole community. Sure.
Yeah. So Saturday is the Brain-A-Thon. We launch it, and then there's a replay for people who can't come on Saturday. It's on Sunday, and then if you sign up, we'll send you a link so that you can watch it as well. It's going to be about 6 hours with, I mean, it'll just be incredible, the amount of practical stuff that you can apply right away. So if you can't make the live event, then sign up anyway, and either show up on Sunday for the replay, or we'll give you a link so that you can watch it once we have it all rendered and everything. So absolutely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I know we're running really tight on time. But I did ask for one more. So is it okay, John?
We do one more for sure.
Okay.
So Christine says, I feel that my chronic pain is continually pushing and pulling, not allowing me to fully tap into joy and creativity. My energy is up and down all through the day. Is there anything you might contribute to this situation? Everything you both are saying is so helpful. Thank you.
Sure. So listen, you know, I like to ask, right? Like, what's causing the pain, right? So pain is a signal, like fear is a signal. So like, you know, I'll give you an example right now. As I'm sitting here, I usually stand. I just had knee surgery a few days ago, and I have some knee and quadricep pain. So the signal is because there was some trauma, okay, called surgery, that's causing the pain. So I'm managing the pain with ice and red light therapy and everything that I can do physically. I'm doing the mental rehearsals of healing perfectly and seeing myself totally healed, so that I could, you know, not be all consumed with the discomfort and the pain. And I know that within a period of time, because my pain is caused because of a specific thing called surgery, it will go away. So that's that. Now, as soon as we get into chronic pain, the question is, what's causing the chronic pain, right? And Sue, you can speak to this way more than I can. Is it structural? Is it psychosomatic? Like, what's causing the chronic pain? And sometimes I like to ask, if somebody's in a consistent state of pain, sometimes I ask them, how is being in that consistent state of pain serving you? Like, what are the secondary gains that you may be getting from that? Are you getting, and I'm not saying that the person who asked this is you, but are you getting attention from that? Are you getting love from that? Are you, able to not do what you really want to do because you're protecting yourself? Because sometimes there's the law of secondary gain at play, where even though I don't like the pain, it's actually benefiting me in this or these ways. So I'm going to look at spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. I'm going to look at structurally, and I'm going to look at anything that may be happening, that's keeping that pain going. And then I would obviously ask, what has to happen in order for me to let go and release this pain once and for all? What would have to happen? If I could find out, where would I look? If there was an answer, who might have it? If there was a book, a course, a program, something, who would they be? Where would they be? And then I would ask, one final question is, am I committed to doing everything possible to let this go now? Right? Because in the spiritual realm, there is a pain-free you. There is a version of a pain-free you in that realm, in the universe that we are in, of all possibilities, right? Like, if you're in pain 24/7, I'd say, okay, maybe there's something, something there that's really, really serious. But if you're in and out of pain, what's causing these in and out states? Is there something triggering it, right? So you need to go beneath the surface, which I'm sure you have. And Sue, you can speak, a lot to this, I am sure.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely where we're coming from inside of the work that I'm doing, and you're speaking to it beautifully as well. And we ultimately want to allow for also the idea of, if ask the question, do I subconsciously believe that I need to be suffering in some way? And maybe the rest of my world is going really well. And so I got to have this one piece that allows that belief to be fulfilled. And so we might want to, evaluate those kinds of things. And I know, John, that you'll be evaluating those kinds of things from many different perspectives in your Brain-A-Thon. And I know Lisa Nichols well, and I know Jack Canfield well, and John DeMartini and I go way back inside of the chiropractic profession, where we both came from. And so I know that everyone is really set for an amazing day on Saturday, if that's an opportunity for them, and if they're already pre-scheduled on Saturday for something else, that the recordings of that will be available for them to access. Again, thank you, Lauren, for popping that up again. I did want to ask you to do that. So it's this Saturday, October 25th, and lots of amazing folks coming in together for what I know will be a truly rewarding time spent together. So I believe the link is also going to be posted in the chat right now. It probably is there for you. And so you might want to jot that down or take a screenshot of what you're looking at so that you can find it easily and click in, follow through, and register for the program. John, I know we've gone over a little bit. I just want to ask if there's one last thing that you'd like to impart before we bid our adieus today. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
First, I want to thank you for having me on your show and sharing some of my work that coalesces beautifully with the work that you do. And I think if somebody is here, something called you to be here, right? Energetically, it resonated with you, and so we're all here to create a masterpiece of our life that we are proud of. Health, wealth, relationship, career, business. I personally don't believe we're here to live an ordinary life. I believe we're here to live an extraordinary life that we are proud of. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of our lives, we sign our name to our life. And so make the choices that's going to make you proud of being alive and using this journey to create a masterpiece with your life. I believe that we have more how to today than in the history of our species. So if you are committed and you really want to step into fulfilling more of your potential, then do it. Like, go for it so that you feel, thoroughly, on purpose and in your fullest passion.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time today, John. I know everyone's very appreciative of all that you're doing, and it's always a joy to see you. And please give my love to your wife. And I'm so sorry that she was wrestling so much, and I didn't even know, we're so separated in this world right now. So please offer my love and love to you, John. Thank you again for all that you're
right back to you. Big hugs.
all the best on Saturday.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone.